too. The lottery.
Phones up. Good evening, everyone. Call this meeting to order. This is the regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the County Independent School District. Today is February 22nd, 2022. The time is 5:32 p.m. And I'd like to welcome our new Sonia, Jessica Martinez. And also leaving us to higher grounds in the baseball world is Stephanie. Good luck, Stephanie. All right. And that'll take us to agenda item 1A. Jessica. And I guess B now, right? Yeah. And let me see who I could pick on in the audience. Coach. Coaches, come on up and lead us in the pledge. You guys are going to be honored tonight, so come on up. Coaches, whenever you guys are ready. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Thank you all. State championship next year. All right. All right, that takes care of agenda item 1A, B, and C. Jessica, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Corral?
Here.
Mr. Hernandez?
Here.
Ms. Mendoza?
Here.
Mr. Payan? Mr. Payan is not here. Mr. Rodriguez?
Present.
Ms. Searle?
Here.
And Ms. Trout?
And Ms. Scott did call in, saying she's not able to be attending.
She might be running really late or not attend at all.
Noted.
Okay. That takes us to the next agenda item. Ms. Martinez.
Item 1E, CISD vision and mission statement.
All right. And let me see who I can pick on. Kristen and Patsy, would you be kind enough to read those for us?
Yeah, I can do the vision passing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. San Mateo ISD is the premier district. We lead today to positively impact tomorrow.
And our mission statement reads, San Mateo ISD supports and embraces diversity in a multicultural society. Our school community thrives in a safe, engaging, inclusive learning environment. We provide equitable opportunities to ensure our future-ready students are inspired to explore, learn, grow, and excel.
All right, thank you, both of you, for reading those. And that takes us to the next agenda item, F, Dr. Valdez.
Yes, Board President, I'd like to forego F, because we do have a basketball game tonight. Our boys are playing El Paso High.
Yes.
For the school, Ms. Camacho. So the coaches are, if we can also move, board honors up before I'm down to.
Yes, with the board consent, we will move up item 3. It's before open forum. Anybody in objection to that? Okay, take it away.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Marty Rocha substituting for our wonderful public information officer. So Board President Coronado, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Galaviz, could you please join me here on the steps as we continue with our board honors presentation. For our first presentation, we want to honor the Canutillo High School football team for a victorious season resulting in the team winning the 1-5A Division II District Championship, the By-District Championship, and the Area Championship. The dedicated teams of players and coaches finished their season 11-2. The Eagles are always soaring here in Canutillo. Congratulations to each and every one of you. You have made our school, our district, and our community proud as always. Coaches and players, please come to the front to be recognized.
I know, all of us. Just know I'm a hugger. No, you know. You guys are awesome. Can I get a little closer? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Thank you, CHS coaches and our wonderful players for a fantastic season. Next, I'd like to call Ms. Nicole Morales up. She is our Director of Student Support and leads with me on this next thing with Dr. Reyes for the recognition of our counselors. Our counselors can start lining up as well who are here today. Tonight, we also honor our extraordinary counselors in recognition of National School Counseling Week, which was February 7th to 11th. Woo! They look a little shy right now, but let me tell you, they're not shy. Our counselors make such an impact on our students' lives, especially during this pandemic. I don't know if we could have done it without all the work that they did. No matter what the situation may be, issues at home, school, helping with emotional and mental health and well-being, or helping them pave a path towards college or careers, our students can always count on a dedicated group of premier counselors. Can you please come forward when Nicole calls your name to be recognized?
Counselor at Bill Children's Elementary, Martha Bueno. Counselor at Jose Damian Elementary, Chelsea Ancheta. Counselor at Canutillo High School, Megan Flores. Counselor at Canadeo High School, Veronica Vasquez. Counselor at Northwest Early College High School, Dave Fox. Counselor at Reyes Elementary, Michelle Escobedo. Counselor at Alberta Middle School, Michelle Balai. Counselor at Alberta Middle School, Ms. Manuela Sola.
And Miss Nicole Morales.
I know. She needs him so much.
Thank you for your service to our kids. Thank you.
And if we can get a formal picture with all these powerful women here who serve our district.
Yeah.
If you want to roar, you can too. You want me to whistle again? They might be a little too young to know that song.
Bit closer?
Closer?
Love each other. Second row. Here, you go taller. Here. Let me know when we need to take our mask off. All right. Yes.
No way.
Hold on. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
That concludes our board honors for the month of February. Thank you, board members.
Hey, PIO officer.
Okay. Thank you, administration, for the presentation, and again, we really appreciate our coaches and our kids in the football team and our counselors. Never more so than during this time that we've faced this last year and a half or 2 years. We really appreciate y'all's work and your service to our students and to the entire community. Thank you for your work. Board members, anybody want to? Okay. Thank y'all very, very much. We appreciate you. All right. With that, Jessica, that takes us back to number 2.
Yes, sir. Open forum. Any person wishing to address the board during the period reserved for public comment at a board meeting must sign up to be heard in accordance with District Policy BED Local. Each participant will be limited to 3 minutes to make comments to the board. The board is not permitted to discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda for tonight's meeting. For further information on those policies, contact the superintendent's administrative assistant. Mr. Coronado, for tonight we have 7 speakers.
Okay, and everybody who is signed up is aware of our policy.
Yes, sir.
All right. Go ahead and call the first person.
First speaker will be Ms. Elizabeth Pettis.
All right, Ms. Pettis.
Welcome.
Thank you. Before my time starts, I want to give each member of the school board one of these.
Whenever you're ready.
We know that young children are being indoctrinated with critical race theory, cancel culture, and a lifestyle that does not agree with their parents, the students, or their home life. We know what you are doing. Your optimal goal is to break their values. You know that their home life has different morals and values, yet you prescribe this poison to our young pre-K and elementary age children. I wonder whose job is it to take care of our students, our children, because you sure are not doing a good job of it. You drag your feet to tired parents and refuse to pull porn from the shelves of the libraries. You just shrug your shoulders and ask, have they filed a grievance? We have repeatedly asked you to remove the porn, stop the indoctrination, stop poisoning young minds, but put it on the agenda for a vote, but yet you refuse. You openly defy parents' wishes to take out pornographic books off the shelves and expect parents to vote in November for another bond? We don't want a generation and school district in decline. We pity you because you don't seem to understand that you will be held accountable. There is a corrective action plan against this board. It is an investigation directly connected to the choices this board has made. This is a self-inflicted wound. What is it going to take to muster the courage to lead? To lead for productivity in this district? You are not quite up for the moment to lead. Your failed policies have led the parents to disapprove of the job and actions you are taking. It is not one issue. It's a series of failures, wide-scale failures. Let me tell you, we will take control in the next election. We will vote you out. We will reset this district to listen to parents and protect our children and their minds. We will win. We will win. And we will direct this district to take another path for the benefit of our children and the generations to come.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Next speaker is Ms. Claudia Reddy.
Mi nombre es Claudia Reddy, de Canutillo. Mi esposo y mis hermanas atendieron al distrito de Canutillo. Técnicamente toda mi familia está a Canutillo. Mis hijos asisten a Canutillo Elementary School. Reconozco que Canutillo es una de las mejores escuelas del distrito, que es lo que hace una buena escuela. Los estudiantes y la educación que están recibiendo los maestros son el fruto de lo que ustedes enseñan en las escuelas. Él es Samuel, en él es Joshua Steven. Son niños de primero y tercer grado. Son niños extraordinarios. GT students, A-Honor Roll students han recibido varios premios por excelente comportamiento. Son niños que han traído honor al distrito de Canutillo. El viernes 11 de febrero, bajo el Código Penal de Texas 4324, los derechos de mis hijos fueron violados. Se les leyó un libro que no tiene ningún fundamento educacional y sin mi autorización. Ese día, mi hijo Samuel, tercer grado, pidió a la mujer que estaba leyendo el libro que parara. Le dijo, tú no estás haciendo lo correcto, este libro no está permitido en esta escuela y lo que estás hablando no es educacional a mí. Ella lo ignoró por completo y siguió leyendo el libro. Después de esto, mi hijo ha recibido bullying en la escuela respecto a sus creencias y a lo que él expresó. Él fue ignorado, sus derechos fueron hechos a un lado. Tal vez para ustedes mis hijos sean números, para mí son el futuro. Un día ellos van a estar sentados en ese lugar, un día ellos van a representar a otros niños y yo quiero saber qué es lo que van a hacer ustedes. Quiero que les digan ahorita a ellos dónde están sus derechos y que ustedes van a defenderlos. ¿Cómo pueden ser ejemplo? Enseñarles que cumplan la ley, enseñarles en la escuela a hacer lo correcto y ustedes no hacer lo correcto al quitar esos libros. Ustedes están rompiendo la ley y no pueden ser ejemplos a mis hijos, enseñarles a hacer lo bueno. Gracias.
Thank you, Ms. Rennie. Next speaker will be Mayra Martinez.
Ms. Martinez, welcome.
Hola, buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mayra Martínez. Estoy aquí representando a mis hijos como padre, como madre. He escuchado varias observaciones y una de las observaciones es que mi hija de high school me está diciendo el libro que en noviembre tuvieron este mismo debate para poder llegar a un acuerdo. Mi inconformidad será el de que la escuela no me está dejando a mí ser la educadora principal de mis hijos, puesto que en los libros hay fotografías muy explícitas. Lo que sí quisiera representar son los valores familiares. Yo creo que valoro demasiado su educación, respeto mucho su trabajo de cada uno de ustedes, pero también yo consideraría que respetáramos los valores familiares que hay en casa. Ahorita ha habido muchos cambios, desde la pandemia para acá la tecnología ha aumentado demasiado la tecnología y ha sido en parte buena porque nuestros hijos tienen más acceso a más información, pero sí hay que cuidar un poco más el corazón de los niños. Estudié psicología infantil y conozco las etapas de crecimiento de los niños. Y esto dice que si tú no cuidas el corazón de los niños, si no miras el crecimiento de los niños, esos niños cuando son unos adultos no estás creando una buena sociedad. Es ahí donde vienen los problemas para la sociedad. Pues para mí sí es importante el cuidar el corazón de los niños, que nos dejen como papás enseñar, instruir, educar a nuestros hijos desde casa, reconociendo que los padres somos los primeros maestros en el hogar, puesto que también consideré que tengo una niña en cada escuela, tengo una en elementary, tengo otro en Alderete y tengo una en high school. Y he visto que, como decía la madre anterior, sus derechos han sido no respetados, no tan solo por lo que creemos, sino por los valores que dirigimos. Ahorita dijimos que somos una nación bajo Dios, un Dios establecido. Entonces, nuestros valores, no quiero decir que son valores tradicionales, pero sí puedo decir que son valores muy fundamentales, como el amor, el respeto y el derecho a la opinión de los demás. Entonces, consideremos un poco más el cómo estamos guiando, qué lecturas están llegando a nuestras escuelas, qué beneficios están sacando nuestros niños. Porque sí, el libro que se leyó en estos días era, la niña tiene 2 botitas, la niña tiene 2 ositos, pero la niña tiene 2 mamis. Es perfecto, a mí no me asusta las personas adultas que puedan elegir sus sentimientos y su forma de guiar sus emociones a una mujer, a un hombre. A mí no me asusta para nada eso y creo que en la sociedad lo están implementando. Entonces dejemos que la familia cree con sus propios valores a nuestros hijos. En otros casos nos han dado un papel para firmar si estoy de acuerdo si se le toman a los niños fotografías para subir al distrito o no. Y en esta ocasión creo que eso no se respetó.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias por su atención.
Gracias.
Next speaker is Ms. Brianne Barnes.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I want to start by saying we're here again for the 6th month and no action still is going to be taken. I heard Mr. Payan the last time talking about how his opinion didn't matter. And he had community members approaching him and family members approaching him about that. We're not asking for your opinions. We're asking for you to stand up for the law. Pornography is illegal in the hands of people under the age of 18.
They don't care.
Okay? So I'm not asking for your individual opinion. I'm asking for you to do what is right for your community and put it on an agenda like we've been asking now for 6 months. If you haven't realized by now, we're not going anywhere. We will not go anywhere because these are our kids that we are talking about. Pornography is the new drug. Are you going to be okay with that being under your belt? Because I'm not. I won't stand for it. Second thing, in case you guys are completely unaware, your morale is extremely low at your campuses throughout the entire district. You have teachers, new teachers who have been teaching their entire careers, saying I can't do it anymore, and they're resigning. And then instead of finding out what we can do to improve that, what we can do to stop it, and it's not just teachers, it's staff, it's nurses, it's police officers, it's everybody. So instead of trying to figure that out, we're bullying them at the end, and we're saying, well, if you're resigning, you're not getting we're taking back your $2,000 stipend. So now you're going to owe that to us. So we have teachers that are not only leaving the district, but they're leaving with 0 paycheck for the current month that they're working. It's wrong. Okay? Next thing, I saw on the agenda that there is a Bible study that is getting ready to maybe start up for our 6th graders, and I love the sound of that. But I'm wondering if we can discuss who's going to be teaching these, what the process is for that, of who we choose to teach those Bible studies. Another thing that was on the agenda that I think needs to be discussed is the Panorama Educational SEL curriculum. This program is being removed in a lot of districts throughout the nation for its content and the fact that we're surveying students without really the parents' knowledge, without the content of those surveys being released to parents. And so I'm wondering if we do get a program like this, I'm hoping not Panorama, but if we do get a program like this, are those surveys going to be released to parents prior to them going out so that parents can approve or deny whether or not their children partake in them? I'm concerned with some non-instructional time lessons that are being presented, which I believe with my little Spanish that I speak is what some of the parents are coming forward with tonight. So hopefully that's addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Next speaker will be Stacy Reddy.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Stacy Reddy. I am 19 years old. I attend the University of Texas at El Paso. I am currently 3 classes away from my bachelor's degree. I am stating this not to boast about my accomplishments, but rather to say that I take education serious. I was just recently informed about the book, and I cannot believe what the district has come to be. I have been part of the Granadillo district all my life, and I am disheartened at the fact that not only do these students have access to this book at their libraries, but that it has been read to these children without any parental consent. Therefore, if this book can be read to these children, then I should also have the right to be able to volunteer to read a Bible. Under the Texas Penal Code 4324,
It is illegal to provide any pornographic content to any child under the age of 18. I have faith that the Canutillo District Board members will stand by what they have taught me all my life, which is morality, honesty, and integrity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ready. Next speaker is Mr. David Villanueva.
Knows everyone. Good evening, Board President Coronado, school board members, and Dr. Galaviz. My name is David Villanueva. I am a graduate of Canutillo High School of the year 2012. After graduation, I went out to college in Providence, Rhode Island, and since then have graduated obtaining an associate's degree in culinary arts and a bachelor's of science in culinary nutrition with a concentration in clinical dietetics from the University of Johnson and Wales. During my time at Johnson and Wales, I was required to complete 2 separate internships. One of the internships that I completed eventually landed me a job that I had dreamed of working and cooking for professional baseball teams. For 6 years, I worked preparing meals for major and minor league baseball players, coaches, and staff. The last team I worked for, the Atlanta Braves, allowed me to participate in long run in the playoffs and then ultimately the Braves winning the World Series championship. I have since to come home and replant my roots in the community that I love so much. I was fortunate enough to be a student in the culinary program offered at Canutillo High School for 3 of my 4 years here. Had it not been for that program, I had not been exposed to the love and art of cooking. I recently heard that the culinary program at the high school has been retired. This is unbelievable to me, as this program has literally changed my life and the trajectory of it, and has opened so many doors for my future, including my education and career experience. I am here today to ask you and for you all to reconsider your decision to retire the program. If the space and facilities that we were offered when I was here are still available, there is chance to continue to provide opportunities, skills, and basic knowledge that students can take with them that can be useful in their everyday lives regardless of their career choices. I want all students to have the opportunities that I had from my humble beginnings in Vincent and Canutillo community. A former chef from the program here in Canutillo, Chef Simpson, took me under his wing and in all aspects, even providing me with connections for a local internship at Ardevino's Desert Crossing in Sunland Park, New Mexico, during my sophomore year in college. He didn't have to do that, but he always wanted me to improve my skills. I believe the same opportunity is owed to all the current and future students of the Canutillo ISD community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. Our last speaker is Dr. Annalisa Lee.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm gonna have to adjust this a little. Good evening, board. My name is Annalisa Lee. I'm the new proud principal of Jose Damian Elementary. I wanted to come to the board meeting today to personally thank you for the opportunity to let me serve this community. I'd like to thank leadership and also my fellow principal colleagues. They have been so welcoming, and this community has welcomed me and embraced me and coached me through this whole process. I have been here for 11 days, but it seems like years. I truly feel like a family. I'm very proud and I'm privileged to serve this community. And I know and I have seen, I have witnessed firsthand that I am working with true professionals and true educators. And I know that every decision that is made here at Canutillo ISD is made with students in mind. So I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to thank you personally. And I'm looking forward to serving the JDE community for years to come. Thank you.
Welcome. That was the last of the open forum, Jessica?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right. That takes us to the next agenda item.
Yes, sir. Item 4A, presentation on possible public facility corporation financing structure and instructions to district staff and consultants on how to proceed. Mr. Braden? Mr. Braden?
Great, Mr. Mejia, welcome. How are y'all?
Good, thank you.
I'm here to back up Mr. Brady. All right.
Good evening. As you said, my name is Paul Braden. I'm Bond Counsel to the district. I was going to go over Public Facilities Corporation financing structure.
Apologize, Paul, would you put that microphone closer to you? That way we can get on.
Is that better?
Yeah.
So, if you go ahead and go to the next slide. In general, in Texas, a public facility corporation are periodically used by school districts as an alternative method to finance new construction. A school district, in essence, forms a public facilities corporation, or a PFC, which is a separate corporation formed by the district. It's a special purpose nonprofit corporation that acts on behalf of and serves the district. The PFC doesn't do anything unless the district board okays it, and most times the PFC's board is a mirror of the district board, so all the members of the trustees and then the board of directors members. The meetings that are held are also open, subject to Open Meetings Act, so it really is sort of an alter ego of the district in terms of everything it does. In the past, in 1999 and 2001, Canutillo ISD did successfully use this structure for certain financing. Go to the next. The whole idea behind the structure is that the district forms a corporation. Corporation is actually the entity that issues the bonds. There'd be a lease between the corporation and the district, whereby the district leases the facilities that's going to be constructed or acquired, and that lease is what pays the bonds back. So there's actually lease revenue bonds. So it's the lease between the district and the corporation because it generates the revenue that pays the bonds issued by the corporation. So again, the lease is the source of payment for the bonds. That's why it's referred to as lease revenue bonds. By statute, there is a somewhat formalistic legal process by which a school district can take on this financing. The first step is they actually publish a notice of intent to enter into this type of lease. It's a 60-day period. That notice is somewhat detailed and contains, at least the general structure and description of what the financing would be. Published in the newspaper, and there's a 60-day period in which residents or voters of the district actually could petition to seek a vote on the project as opposed to just going forward with this type of mechanism. If 5% of registered voters of the district file a petition within the 60-day period, the district could not move forward with the PFC financing, and there would have to be an election before it could move forward. Otherwise, after that period expires, the district could move forward with the transaction. Go to the next slide. So proceeds from the bonds, this is really used primarily for some type of new construction. And proceeds from the sale of bonds are used to construct the project, also to acquire the land in which the project would be built. Only revenues from the lease are available to repay the bonds, so no taxing authority is pledged to the repayment of these bonds. It's a subject to appropriation lease. Every year, the district has to appropriate funds to pay the lease, which in turn pays the bonds. The PSC constructs and owns the projects and grants the mortgage and the bondholders as part of the financing. So it's a lot more of a real estate deal than is a typical financing by a school district. The project itself will have a mortgage on it, just like your house has a mortgage on it. The people who buy the bonds will foreclose if the bonds were never paid on the project itself. So it's similar to that type of financing. There are kind of a lot of special rules associated with this type of financing, and one of them is bids for construction or demolition can be taken until that 60-day period expires. I'll also mention that if a district undertakes this, they need to think about this in a little different manner than the typical bond financing. The corporation, you have to think about the corporation as owning the project as being separate. So for the most part, you need to know what it's going to cost to acquire and build the project before you issue bonds. It's not like you get a bond approved by the voters and you have so much money and seek bids and do projects associated with that. You almost have to lock up either a construction manager at risk or a design build where you know what the guaranteed maximum price is, because then you can size the bond deal around that. So there's a lot more prep work you do as a district before you ever take on the steps to do this type of financing. You really have to have a feel for what the project is. At the end, again, if you think about the corporation, it's the same board, and the idea is that the district has the option to purchase the project for nominal consideration upon repayment of the bondholders. This is a financing tool for the district, so the corporation, while it owns it as a separate legal entity, at the end, when the bondholders are paid off, the intent is basically that the project will be transferred to the district for nominal consideration. If the project is going to be built on land already owned by the district, that the district might own, corporation actually has to pay fair market value to the district for that land. It can be that if the district so chooses, the district could contribute those funds back to the project itself. But it is again somewhat more of an arm's length transaction. Every action associated with the bond issuance that the corporation board approves, the district in its district board would also approve. The Texas Attorney General approves this type of financing as well. So before these bonds would ever be issued, the Texas AG would issue its opinion that it's being done in accordance with valid Texas law. So this is a schematic of sort of what I just described. With the school district on top, it forms the corporation. Corporation owns the project, and then there's a series of various other agreements in place. Probably the most familiar that everybody is with is the public facility would issue the bonds, and the underwriter would be the purchaser of the bonds underneath. This would be under a trusted venture, and like a bond resolution payment agent, so there would be a trustee that actually collects the lease revenues and pays the bondholders. The contractor is the person who would build the project, and again, there would have to be some type of guaranteed maximum price associated with construction relationships so you could structure the deal appropriately. In terms of the advantages and disadvantages associated with this structure, it does allow a school district to relatively quickly address immediate new construction needs. There are financing tools that are available to the district without a vote for remodeling and those type of things, but in terms of new construction needs, this would be one of the few things the district could do in terms of that. Again, it's not really suited to do everything the district might need. It's best suited as a limited tool for capital projects, which have to be undertaken for external pressures. If there's some external pressure on the district that it has to get something built or moved into, this is the type of financing that would be available. As I've described, it's more complex than just a direct tax bond. Because of that, it's more costly in terms of legal fees and interest costs than a typical direct tax bond. The PSF guarantee, which is available for INS tax issued by the district, would not be available for this type of structure. It does use the district's M&O tax rather than the INS tax. The way that works is the M&O tax is used to pay the lease, just like if you were leasing a building or leasing a structure from a third party, and then those lease revenues pay the bondholders. So it's again the M&O tax that's used as opposed to the INS tax. Upon a subsequent vote by the voters, This M&O debt can be refunded and moved over to the INS side, but it has to be then pursuant to a vote of the voters, separate proposition. In both of the two prior instances where County did this type of financing, there was a subsequent vote in which it was moved over before the bonds matured into the INS side. And that is all I have on the general presentation. Rudy and I are both available for questions.
I do have some questions, but I'll ask my board members first if you have any questions. Go to my left first. Kristen? Aldo?
I do. In regards to, it comes out of the maintenance and operation, and then it would be voted on, I mean, just to repeat what you said, then it would have to be voted on, well, we can ask the voters to prove it, right? But then it would be 3 different referendums on the bond compared to last time, which was, one was a bond, and then the other one was a tax maintenance note. And this would have to be a completely separate, or could it be combined with the tax maintenance note?
So it might be able to be combined with the tax and maintenance notes. I'd have to check. Where we've done it in the past, it's always been a separate proposition to take out this debt. But what you're referring to is the tax and maintenance note takeout is the same type of debt, it's the same type of issue, so we might be able to combine the two.
Okay, but that's something we could look into. My concern is having too many different proposals on a bond referendum. Preferably, I would rather wait to have it within the bond election, and that's something that we would probably have to discuss when it's appropriate, and I know we can't discuss some of those details. That would have to be discussed in executive session, so I don't want to. But my preference would be to look at it going in the bond first, and then if it comes to that point where you have to tell them we don't have to place, then this is the option we would have to go about. And so it would just be like the tax maintenance notes. In other words, and this is probably more for our finance department, which would end up dipping into our M&O and minimizing the amount that we could we would either have to look at no pay raises, maybe pay cuts, or other options depending on the amount. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's all I have for right now.
All right.
I have a question. I know that we have in the past used the PFC, and BOISD has used it very successfully. Can you refresh my memory on when we used it and what we did with it?
Sure. It was in 1999 when we first used it. It was for an elementary school. It might have even been an elementary school addition because I think it'd be a condo agreement for that. And then in 2001, it was for an administration building and a warehouse.
Ms. Earls?
What are we going to use this for?
We still at liberty to discuss that or
I mean, we could say one of
not?
Okay.
Okay.
for the central office. Right now we're on a timeline. Now then.
So my understanding is the timeline is an if, not a specific. No one, am I correct? I mean, I'm asking more than speaking authoritatively. Has TechStop come to us yet and said,
No, ma'am. This is just
on the come?
this is just another way to prepare for what's coming our way. So they have not came to us.
Yeah, they haven't really said that this is gonna happen. So if we decided to pursue something like this, wouldn't it be better to have it for sure?
Well, we do have it for sure. Bruno was there, and Arthur Pekarsky was there, and this is a for sure project. It's already been.
The project is for sure, but the boundaries are not.
So the boundaries are for sure. They showed us According to my
The
knowledge.
timeline's not yet.
Is this still sensitive? Because last time I wanted to discuss it, I was told not to.
The boundaries of the project are not finalized, but they are already on what they call schematic design. The drawings that we were shown a couple of months ago, for which we anticipate that have been developed further, show the edge of the ramps coming from I-10 west towards Sarcraft, right at the edge of this border outside here. Like I said, we have tried to get another update from TechStat about how, when are they expected to have a new stopping point in the design process, but they don't have that just yet. There is not just the engineers of record that are working on it, but also TechStat's legal department preparing to reach out to all the property owners, which in this area, just on this side of the freeway, include Rudy's and Burger Place across the street, Wing Place over here. But so, no, there is no definite date as of when, as of right now.
And they haven't said definitely that we're it, just possibly the front of our property.
They, like I said, the drawings that they had a couple of months ago show only a portion of this property being utilized. However, that is just the project that TechStat is developing. If, let's say that the district wanted to continue using this building because there is demolition and new construction to address that selective demolition, now we have to comply with city zoning requirements, which because of the right-of-way with TechStat's project, and in addition to zoning restrictions, that setback pushes the building way back out there where Marco Macias has his warehouse. So, for all intents and purposes, it defeats the possibility of reusing any portion of this building for any significant use.
And has this been funded already? Not our
Yes,
department.
TechStat's project, that is the reason why they reached out to us. That is the first question that we asked, is this funded? And they said, yes, it is funded.
Okay, thank you very much, Bruno. I have some other questions. So,
Sure.
if the 5% of the registered voters want to petition during the 60-day period, you said they have to file. Where do they file?
With the secretary.
Just here in the district?
Yes.
And how do you know when the 60-day period began?
You publish a notice in the paper, and so it's 60 days from the publication date.
Okay, so you just have to watch the newspaper every day.
Well, this board would have to take action to authorize publication of the notice.
Okay,
But
so
the
the
60
board has to take the action. It's just like our RFPs. We don't take action for those. I just see them in the newspaper.
No, for this, the board would have to take action
Okay.
to approve a resolution that authorizes publication of the newspaper.
Okay, so it would have to be step by step, made known to our public exactly what we're doing. So if they're not happy, this is their recourse.
That is correct. There is a lot of public notice associated with it.
Okay. You know, Ms. Mendoza is correct. We have used this before. I was on the board when we used this before. It was to build the Canyon View Elementary School, and it was to purchase this building. We were very, very poor at that time. We were exceedingly poor. Our circumstances aren't quite that now. Thank you very much, Mr. Braden. I appreciate it.
And just as a side note, one of your sister districts have recently used this.
Okay.
When they were being forced out of their central office location. It's all public. El Paso ISD used to, I'm sure you all know, used to have its central office on Bowie. That property is actually owned by the city, and so the lease on which they were building the building was actually expiring, and the city was going to increase the lease significantly because of market rates and market pressures. So El Paso ISD went through a PFC process, acquired some land in sort of category of St. Patrick's, the old Hotel Dew block, and it built a new facility there. It also bought a building across the street, but that was separate, and it used like different money to renovate that building for some offices, but the board and the meeting conference hall is in a new building across the street there, and they use the PFC structure to finance that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your clarity. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Questions I have is, in terms of the financing and the cost of the money, is, I know this is a little more costly. One, it requires more things to do other than the maintenance textbook where we just sell them after the board. It's a fairly easy process, right? What is the, in terms of the cost, if you can tell us, either Rudy or Paul, what the cost in terms of, one, the interest rate and the adjunct process that we have to go through in terms of its cost?
Yeah.
Sure. Mr. Ronaldo, that's a great question. For the record, Rudy Mejia with Estrada Hinojosa. You can typically expect anywhere between half a percentage point or a full percentage point difference in a PFC financing versus your regular San Antonio ISD PSF backed transaction. And the reason being is
it doesn't have the district's bond rating.
Exactly. We're utilizing the district's underlying bond rating, which is AA2. Typically, a PFC will either maintain that rating or be one notch below. And so that's going to come with a premium of interest rate. So let's just say, for instance, last year when we did our transaction, I think we were around 2.2%, somewhere around there. We could expect this financing to be about 3.5% to 4%, just because of where rates are at today. And then that extra premium we're going to have to pay for, we're developing a whole new corporation that has its own rating, and it doesn't have the state backing it the way our normal bonds do. So there is a little bit of a cost premium. But to Mr. Braden's point, the intent would be to move this debt over to the INS side where we could leverage, some other mechanisms to lower that cost of finance.
Okay. And what about the cost of setting up, doing everything else besides the sale of the actual bonds?
So the cost of establishing the corporation is relatively minor. The more significant cost is the cost associated with doing a real estate transaction. So typically, as part of this, and unlike most bond transactions where we don't involve your general counsel, we would involve your general counsel to do the real estate component of it, because it's, you're acquiring a piece of property, you're negotiating construction contracts, and you also have to get title insurance. It's just like buying a piece of property, all that. So those are the costs that become more significant. There are more significant bond costs, but it's a little bit hard to estimate unless we have more specific parameters of the size of the deal and how that would compare with respect to just a GO deal.
All right, and then as far as the time period for the bonds, the PFC bonds, are we going to be able to structure them and amortize them in the same way as regular bonds?
So unfortunately, we won't be able to finance them for 30 years. This would be a shorter transaction. I would say somewhere between 15 to 20 year time frame, depending on the type of financing that we do. A recent example that's also public is Pflugerville ISD, which is in the Austin area. They had a very similar situation. That financing was done over a 15-year period. When you go purchase a home, you have your closing. For this bond transaction, for a PFC, you have simultaneously closing on the bond transaction, and then an hour or two later, you're closing on the real estate transaction. So there is a lot more complexity with timing and making sure everything's lined up. Because as you know, buying a house in general can be complex with escrow and title and all that. So having a set time frame is imperative to make sure this transaction goes off smoothly.
Okay. And I know obviously we need to do the 60-day period, but what is your estimate in terms of the time it's going to take for us, from the time the board makes a decision to the time we can actually say, okay, now we can, the PFC can go out and try and buy the property?
So rough estimate, I would say about 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months?
6 to 9 months, and that's best case scenario if you're purchasing a brand, or if you're purchasing an existing building. If we're constructing something new, that's a whole other timeline. And the bond transaction isn't gonna be what holds anything up. It'd be the engineering, the procurement processes that you all have to go through that's going to, prolong the process.
So, higher interest rate, higher payment because it's amortized over less period, and more costs associated with one, real estate transactions and the setup. All right?
It is a more costly transaction, yes. That's sort of why it's limited use when you have sort of outside forces forcing you to do so.
Right. Like textile.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any other questions?
I do.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Are we able to show them what was provided? Because I think it would help the community understand.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
What was just described, the fact that TxDOT has, in regards to the design of this, is taking up the front of.
I don't see that as part of the backup. I'm not sure what do you have.
It was part of the backup last meeting, and that's what I was trying to
Bruno, do you
share.
have that? Not with me right now.
But are we able to share that with the community so that way they get a better understanding?
We're talking about the TxDOT plan?
Yeah, the TxDOT plan.
Yeah, we can share with the community for sure. Absolutely.
You can discuss it.
Okay.
All right.
If we could just put that as backup on the next item, or see if we can.
And Dennis, are you done?
That's it.
Ms. Rose?
As I read our agenda items, we have no action tonight, just
You do, because they wanted an item for instructions to the staff, and to Mr. Brady and Mr. Mejia, whether or not the board is interested in moving forward with this proposed financing idea. I don't know if y'all are or not.
Ms. Rose?
this is the first it's been brought to us, and
Hold on.
at our, it's the first that this one's been, this manner of finance.
Oh, yeah.
We heard the problem, and now we've heard a possible solution. I personally would feel comfortable if we talked about this some more, because there's been things that have happened in between.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I'm
We got our appraisal.
About our what?
Please note that Ms. Trout joined us. We've had an appraisal done. There have been some things that have happened since our last meeting that I personally would feel more comfortable if we talked about those before I voted on doing this as yes or no. Does that make sense? You understand where
Yeah, I understand what you're getting at, but that's still not gonna solve our problem. That's still not gonna solve our problem.
635 is.
Whatever we get for this building is not gonna solve the problem.
No, not just that, but I mean, it just feels to me like there's something to talk about. Back to our, like our ethical guidelines that we're not supposed to do anything. Our board operating procedures is what it is. Don't take quick action on long-term things. And I don't, just so you know, I don't feel comfortable without either having some kind of, a little bit more information. Let's leave it like that.
Well, Bruno?
So, what more information do you want?
Well, I think more information to speak with the board, and we had talked about, I really don't know that I should go here, but, there were options, there were thoughts, we discussed things in executive, you understand.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. But what I'm saying, regardless of how we go with respect to where we're moving, that's still not gonna solve the problem that we have, that we need to move out, period, and we're not gonna be able, I mean, once we move out of here, we're not gonna have the money and build the next place like that.
Understand.
So we need a mechanism to get us something before we have to move out is the problem. Not whatever money we're gonna get for it. We're obviously not gonna be able to replace wherever we get with this, wherever we build, the same. Even if it is, we're not gonna have the money available 6 to 9 months before so that we can be able to build. Correct, Bruno?
Yeah, especially because of the process that has to be followed. There's a lot of work that has to be done up front by the design teams in order for us to be able to secure prices, guaranteed maximum price. And so, yeah,
It's gonna be time consuming.
we're gonna have to,
Do we have I know TechStop hasn't been, but can you give us an approximate time frame? Are we looking at like early next year, middle of next year?
During our conversation with TechStop a couple of months ago, they told us that our deadline was May of 2023.
May of 2023?
Yes.
So that gives us a year and 2 months? Wow. That doesn't give us much time. Yeah, that doesn't give us much time.
Mr. Chair.
If we gotta be out of here by May of 2023, the longer we keep deciding whether or not things are gonna happen, we're probably not gonna go for another bond election until November. That's not gonna cut it.
We will not have enough time to finish the project. So
No, obviously that's not gonna cut it. And by the time we sell this and get the money here, that's not gonna cut it. Because we need somewhere to move.
that's another
Right.
time.
Whatever
that has
we
to
do
be
when we sell it,
considered.
get the money and what.
The actual moving of and I understand that some departments have already begun considering the processes of moving, particularly in food service and IT,
Yeah,
because of the complexity of their existing building systems.
right. Yeah, we have a lot of issues and not a whole lot of time.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rodriguez.
I sort of don't believe we have the amount of information we need to make the decision as well. And I think we also need to update on what conversations we had last time, as well as some of the questions that were brought up. I would prefer if we need to table it. I mean, what options?
You don't have to act on it tonight.
When we said no action, you were saying that.
No, Ms. Earl said that it wasn't posted for action.
It is
You're
posted
permitted
for
to take
action.
action tonight if you want to, but you don't have to.
So we could either take no action or we could table it.
So, real quick, I would like to clarify on the agenda item then, on the action that is being taken, because it does say here that we're providing instructions on how to proceed. I want to know what the commitment to that is. If we approve it, because it's time sensitive, right? So if we approve the agenda item as presented, we can move forward but still back out once we get more information, or no? Am I misunderstanding?
Right. Mr. Hernandez, that's a valid point. So really what we're asking is to get the board's intent. Do you want us to start exploring this option? There's no commitment. In fact, we don't even have a scope of the project yet. So we wouldn't be able to even come back to the board until Bruno and his team and everyone decides on a particular site or a building or comes up with some type of plan where we could even utilize this. And that's, when we come back, that is when Mr. Brady will bring the notice of intent, which would start the 60-day process. So today, we're just providing information and asking if this is something that the board would like for Mr. Brady and I and staff to start exploring on the district's behalf. But as of right now, there's no plan.
Yeah. So just to clarify, it's more of a proactive step forward to see if we're interested as opposed to any kind of commitment, right?
Yeah. Are you done? Okay. Guys, the only thing, the problem with this is if we're not moving on this quickly, we don't necessarily have to decide today, but it's got to be pretty quickly because I know we're going to run into a delay problem. Construction always does. Correct me if I'm wrong. Bruno, how much construction in the past has been done on time as projected?
So, unlike building a car, building a project from scratch that has never been designed before, it's always, you have to know and realize that there's gonna be delays. Much more so right now in the construction industry.
Because of the
there are
supplies.
delays of supplies and labor. Those are also bringing fear into our mindset as we approach this, this process.
Right. Administration, what other option do we have to move our administration building besides this? Right now, this is it. Yeah. We don't have any other option of how to proceed because, one, we don't have bond funds. We didn't pass a bond. So now we gotta go out for another bond. That's not gonna be till November. By then it's gonna be too late for us to proceed either way, whether it passes or doesn't pass. It's gonna be too late for us to move out here in time. My suggestion is that we give our intent to administration that, to proceed and, you know, I believe one of us wins the multi-million-dollar lottery, donates it to us. Apart from that, this is our only option to be able to move us out. If we don't, TxDOT will. Right?
I do think I think the district needs to start preparing, and there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done before you ever do this financing.
Right.
So telling your internal team, come up with a plan as to what you're gonna do in terms of moving, and then you can almost figure out the financing after you come up with the plan. So if you come up with the plan, this is what we wanna acquire, this is what we wanna build, this is about what it would cost.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like it has to be done however you finance.
Anyways, yeah.
And it seems like that would be required before you could ever put a notice of intent in the paper.
Right. My suggestion to this board is that we instruct administration and both our bond and our financial advisors to proceed with a plan as if we were going to use this because to give us a more definite picture of on cost, where, and all those issues because if we don't start moving on this, we are going to regret it. And we are going to have a problem that's going to end up costing us even more money. Because we're going to have to move into some facility immediately and lease it and then move out of there again. And that's going to be costly in terms of IT and everything else that we have here. It's just asking for more cost. I don't want to get our constituents to pay more cost because we don't want to make a decision about this when it's our only option. Ms. Rose.
Yeah. I feel like what I'm hearing from our advisors and what I'm thinking in my own head says, tonight we should have had a plan from the administration. Here's what we need. You know, we're gonna need, I don't know how many square feet, we're gonna need this much square feet, we're gonna need, these are our needs. Or maybe, and you know, 2 weeks ago we needed to have a meeting to discuss what our needs are. How can we possibly decide if we want to take out financing? We don't know what our needs are.
We do know what our needs are. Our needs are a new administration.
Yeah, but how big is it? What does it include? Where does, you know, is it going to be over there? Or is it going to be up there? That's what I was trying to get at. I think that
we need to tell administration that's what we want them to do.
that would be a real helpful thing. Yeah, I mean, we're getting the cart before the horse here.
I said, we need to tell
Yes, I would
administration
agree.
that
We want to see a plan.
we
Where's
wanna
the
see a plan.
strategic plan?
But they want to know, is it our intent that we use this type of financing? The public finance, the corporation.
Well, I would also suggest that, you know, the plan would say, is it a permanent building we're building? Is it a temporary building we're building? If it's a temporary building, maybe we could do it for this much money. And gee, look, we've got a lot of money in the fund balance. At times we have more than we could ever use, actually. We're not a poor district anymore. That is an absolute fact. Yeah, I mean, all it takes is a look around to see. here, the up and coming school district. So I'd like to see some type of a plan before we decide this is how we're gonna fund it.
What we need to do is tell administration, whatever we decide, is this the way we want to go?
Let's do it. I don't see anything on this agenda to do that. To tell administration to bring us a plan, I see nothing there. But I think that's what's
That's exactly
missing
what
here.
they're asking us
The
to do.
component is, what are you gonna do with it? Yes, we can have money. That's okay. I can go to the bank and get money right now. I think most people in the room can. We can go get a loan. But you gotta know what you're gonna get that loan for.
Get another raise.
Before, I think I'm clear. So that's, thank you, Mr. Coronado.
Yeah, I think it's clear. We need to direct administration, I think, and our advisors our bond council about whether it is our intent to proceed in this way and to bring us administration, to bring us the plan on what it's going to cost in terms of it. And obviously down the road, after we sell this building, we'll be able to apply this money from the sale of the building towards whatever the price is, because we probably won't be finished, right? By the time we get the money, we might be able to apply to it before, right?
Yeah.
Right?
If you have to be out here by May 2023, that's tight.
Yeah, that's tight, but I think we need to probably start the process. So, anybody else? All right,
Can we ask administration to develop a plan without the PCU, but to develop a plan with options depending?
No, you keep going backward, you want to go forward. And this is, the intricacies of this PFC are 6 to 9 months. So within that, going to develop a plan, we just want to know, if the bond didn't pass. So even if we put it on November, there's still no guarantee that's going to pass. So we just want, this is another avenue to secure a location, secure a central office at least. We're going to have to go somewhere. So if the backtrack and create a plan and do all this.
At the last meeting, we requested, what would that look like?
Well, now I want to know, do you want to go through this PFC? Now we're going to have to go through this all again, this whole bond process. Now add an administration location to the bond process.
And for me, I don't mind utilizing this, but I want this as the last option if the first two don't. I mean, not the first two, but what other options? One might be the bond. The other is, if it is remodeling an existing building, that could be utilized as tax maintenance notes, so that's an option, right?
That's right.
So what options are available to us as a board in regards to this? I don't mind utilizing this, but until option one fails, then this is the option.
But because of the longevity of this process, in our opinion, it would be wise to go through this process to start, to continue. You don't have to use it in the end, but at least you started the 6th today with our bond counsel and financial advisor for us to move forward. The more you postpone it, the more you delay inevitable, we're going to have to go somewhere. Supported by the community or not.
My suggestion is that we instruct administration to start with the plan, both with the PSC and other alternatives. But if we don't start with the PSC, we're going to regret the time factor down the road. We don't have to commit to it now, but I think we need to start the process to investigate it, get something a little more definite. Is that what I'm hearing from y'all?
Yeah, I mean, it would be helpful, and we can work with your staff, like I could put together at least a framework of what a notice of intent looks like. So you have a feel for what type of information you'd have to know before you could put that out there. And it's just a one pager, but it would give a feel for what administration needs to, know in terms of what the project's gonna be.
Now, Rudy, the other thing on the maintenance tax notes, we could do that, but it would have to be an existing property or what?
That's correct. So you really only have three options here. Option one is to throw an administration building on the ballot in November or whenever the next time the district goes out.
It's kind of late.
Option number two would be to rehab an existing building that's owned by the district, which then you could utilize maintenance tax notes. Right? That also comes out of the M&O side. And option three is to utilize a PFC. Right? So let me talk about timing though real quick. So option one, it would be a November election date, which would then start the process and it would be a normal bond transaction. Option two, maintenance tax notes, it's quicker. If the district did have an existing building, the rehab of an existing building is very costly. It can sometimes run as equal to a new build, right? And then option three, a PFC. So if option one, the election doesn't pass, and we start the process of a PFC in December, now we just pushed it to September of 2023. That's probably the best, or that'd probably be the quickest that we could get the funds to then start the new construction. So, you are operating in a very tight timeline right now, but those are your only three options that you have available.
Well, really, practically speaking, we only have two options. I don't see the bond election in November as an option. We won't be out of here by May. And then it's going to end up costing us more money to go rent someplace and then move back again.
So can I just add that in talking about the plan, we kind of needed to know how much money we have to spend on the plan. And in looking at how much money we might need to spend on the plan, we needed to look at financing options. Right. And what we didn't want is to come to you with a plan and say the plan includes the PFC and that would be the first time you see it.
Right.
So this is just your exploratory time to ask questions about the PFC. This is what it is, a refresher for those who used it before, and for those who haven't, to ask their questions. What would it look like? What are the steps? How would it work? How is the public involved? All of that. Just so if we do come to you and say this is our best plan and our recommendation is the PFC, you won't say, oh, this is the first time we've seen it.
Right.
So this is just a exploratory.
Okay.
That's fair.
But we need to start the process or else we will regret it. Any other questions from the board? Okay.
I would like to see a plan though, Mr. Coronado. I'd like to see what somebody's thinking something. If they're not, it's high time they started. What's it going to look like? Who's it going to house? How big is it going to be? Where are the possibilities? We've talked about this.
Yeah.
We need something.
No, and that's exactly what we're asking them to do, in line with either going through the PFC or maintenance tax notes to bring us back a plan. We know that we're going to be able to use money from this place to somehow offset it down the road. And what our best alternative is going to be if we can find a building in the district. I don't know that we have one that's going to be able to match that. So practically speaking, Bruno, do you have a building in the district that we can rehab?
I'm already convincing Dr. Ray.
You want to kick her out?
No.
Yeah, I mean, where would we put somebody else that we're kicking out, right? I don't know.
We do have a lot of land.
We do have land, but some of it's not an existing building. Is it possible to maintenance tax on new construction even though it's not, right?
No.
Right. So that's an option. So our option is kick somebody out of wherever they're at, or DFC, right? And do new construction.
But I would like to see that too.
Right.
We have land. Yeah, like, We don't really heard it all.
So where we get the land is a totally different deal. What I'm telling you is, in the practical sense, our only option is gonna be the PFC. Unless we find a building in the district that we can rehab. I don't know of one. Bruno? Without kicking somebody else out and building them something?
Space available in the existing, the district owns 13 buildings altogether. Existing space, realistically speaking, exists fragmented in various buildings. One of them is Lone Star. However, the Lone Star building has several projects and several programs that they want to continue bringing in. So one of them is the dental clinic, which is stalled, COVID, whatever. But other space available is the old administrative buildings, but those are very expensive to renovate. They are very small, very fragmented. And the other space available is at 2 campuses. But as we expect, with the development that are coming in through the village of Benton, Bill Childress, we expect those that campus to pick up more students. We don't want to, do something now that we have to redo in the future. So it's complicated in that sense.
Yeah.
The fragmentation of the space is one of the main concerns.
Yeah, the practical matter we don't.
And the other campus?
Davenport.
And I had heard one was Alerta as well.
Verete does not have enough available space.
Wasn't that one of the options to make it, to get a new middle school?
During the, are you talking about during the bond process?
Yeah.
The idea through the bond process was to build a new middle school and then use the old Alderete Middle School campus and renovate it into the central office.
No.
But only if a new middle school was built, central office would relocate to the Alderete Middle School. That was the proposal that was presented to the board on August the 10th.
That's not gonna be an option. We don't have money for it. So I think we're kind of beating a dead horse here. I think we need to make a decision and tell administration how to proceed. Do I hear a motion from someone to? All right, Mr. Hernandez, your motion is that we instruct administration to proceed with the possibility of exploring the public facility corporation financing structure, as well as any other possible finance structures to be able to fund the move of administration. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board on this item?
Just to clarify, it does provide the other alternate options.
Yes.
Right, whether it's a bond, whether to develop that plan. Okay.
Can you reread the motion, please?
Yes, it's to explore, to instruct administration and our bond counsel and our financial advisors to explore the possible public facility corporation financing structure for a new administration facility, and bring us options on whether it's going to be rehab or new build, and whether there's other financing structures available. Is that correct?
Options.
Options, right. Right? Right. Motion and a second.
For clarification, we're not saying this is what we're doing, go forward and we're good, right? This is
We want to
just
plan on our options.
exploratory. It's just
And a little more information.
okay.
Right. Any further discussion from the board? All right, hearing none. Jessica, please poll the board.
Mr. Coronado?
Yes?
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Payan is not present. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
For the record, yes, for exploratory purposes only.
Noted. And, Ms. Trout.
As well, for the record, for the exploratory, and bring some options, and then we will take the decision on the exploratory.
Yes.
Yes.
On to the next item.
Is that it? You pulled everybody?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Motion passes.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Look forward to sometime soon in like 2 days. Just kidding.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Jessica, that takes us to the next agenda.
Yes, sir. Item 4B, discussion and possible action to adopt a resolution that supports the IDEA Full Funding Act.
I move to approve.
I second it.
I'm sorry, I got Ms. Rose for the motion, and who was the second? Mr. Coronado.
I would like to add some words, Mr. Coronado, to this.
Yes, Ms. Pratt?
We went to Washington, of course, as a continuation of what we were doing over there. I was very deep in this, and everyone knows that I'm always very big advocate for the IDEA department. So with the talks that we have with the Chief of Staff of Senator Corning, we expressed that we would like to see it increasing, and what we can do as the school districts in order to promote more and have income to the school districts here in Texas. So we know that definitely the commitment level was 40%. They have no moving the needle, unfortunately, for that, and it was only awarded the 15.7%. It is so indicate that the shortfall is 28.58 billion, almost 24 billion. So then I was talking with some classes that we took over there, ladies from National School Board Association. They present a class to us, and of course that I wanted to bring it here. This is the results that we have when we go and take the classes. Mrs. Searles might remember about this, right? And I would like to read this because this is very important. That's the reason that I wanted to submit this document here before us. So I'm going to read it. It says, whereas the Canutillo Independent School District recognized the need for strong investment in the Individuals with Disability Act IDEA, and whereas the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act was first enacted in 1975 to help ensure that all students with disabilities would have access to a free and appropriate public education. And whereas with the enactment of the IDEA, the United States Congress committed to fund up to 40% of the additional cost of special education, thereby promising to provide up 40% of the national average to pupil expenditure, which is currently estimated per student 13,828 by year by the United States Department of Education. And whereas since IDEA enactment more than 45 years ago, the current federal investment in IDEA is less than 15%. And whereas the Canutillo Independent School District and many other public school districts throughout the United States educate the growing number of children with disabilities is now more than 7 million. Whereas our nation's school districts face an increased demand of greater resources to fulfill the needs for students for IDEA, including those for students affected by multiple disabilities whose individual education plans require more resources. And whereas with each increase in the IDEA child count, the Canutillo Independent School District Board of Trustees and others throughout the country continue to adjust their budgets to accommodate this increased need and ensure that each child educated through IDEA receives the appropriate supports, with some school districts dedicating 40% or more their general education budgets to special education services. And be it resolved that the Canutillo Independent School District Board of Trustees support the IDEA Full Funding Act that will help strengthen the federal investment in special education by authorizing a 10-year plan to fully fund the federal share of IDEA, and be it resolved that Canutillo Independent School District Board of Trustees urges Congress strong partisan support for the passage of the IDEA of the Full Funding Act. And now, Therefore, be it resolved that the Canutillo Independent School District Board of Trustees remains committed to provide students with disabilities and their families and the support they need, and acknowledges that intergovernmental partnership among the local and state and federal levels of government critical to the shared investment in our children. So if it passed, will be adopted today, the 22nd of February 2022, beautiful numbers, by the Canutillo Independent School District Board of Trustees. And let me explain you something a little bit about this. People who understand about the bills and House bills, what it talks about is that we need to support this House bills, and there is an amendment to this House of Republican Bills Congress, which is the 3213, that it says that it's guaranteed that we're going to have full funding in 10 consecutive years for the Department of IDEA, Individuals and Disability Act Education. So every school board, we should move for that, because definitely that community needs our support, and we as the trustees all together, we need to work for that. It's something that really urges me that we could pass here. And thank you very much, trustees, and thank you, committee.
All right, thank you, Ms. Trout. Anybody else? All right, hearing nothing further, we do have a motion before the board in a second. Jessica, please pull the board.
Mr. Coronado?
Yes?
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Payan is not present. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Searles?
Yes.
And Ms. Trout?
Definitely yes, thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mrs. Searles, for your motion. Thank you for the second.
You're welcome. Next agenda item.
Next agenda item is item 4C, discussion and possible action on Lone Star Governance, LSG, student outcome goal progress.
Good evening, board. I'm Stacey Parker. I'm your advanced academics coordinator for the district.
Nicole Morales, Director of Student and Community Services.
Good evening.
Nicole. We have some information to share with you. At a previous presentation, you were the goals for college and career readiness were shared with you. So for tonight's presentation, with regard to our presentation, we'd like to start with slide number 10, if you don't mind. The first 9 slides are the goals that you've already been, that were already shared with you. Now we're going to look at some of the progress monitoring that we are looking at as we're working towards making sure that our students are college and career ready. On slide 10, you'll see some information that the goal was to have 70% of our students college and career ready by their graduation. As of right now, we have 40% of our students already have met that goal. We have another, let's see, we have another 30% of this year's graduating class. Now this data comes from in the summer. There are some other indicators that have not been included in this from the state. So I anticipate that this will go up quite a bit.
So when we discuss our college career readiness opportunities for this class of 2022, there are several initiatives that we have in place. TSI has been a repeated topic, so we are continuing to do interventions, testing opportunities for our students. Thus far, 688 advanced placement tests have been ordered for our main testing opportunities for our students. We also are doing campus-wide spring ACT dates, so CHS is set to test seniors on April 19th, Northwest the week of March 8th through the 10th during intercession week. 86 of seniors at CHS have already accomplished their industry-based certification, so that directly aligns to our CCR accountability. At Northwest, associate's degrees, BPCC has remained asynchronous due to the pandemic. So 85% of our seniors are currently projected to complete an associate's degree by the end of the year. BPCC is extending an opportunity to us to allow us to graduate our seniors through June, which historically has not been done. So that would allow us those extra kids to have that time to graduate in the summer. So again, that would be them working on it through semester 1 of the summer session. FAFSA.
always a hot topic. So as of right now, we are ahead in the region. Our Gunnville High School students are already at a 74% completion rate for FAFSA, whereas Northwest is already at 95%. We continue offering those initiatives for FAFSA completion. If you recall, the window for FAFSA completion begins in October. So that's really a great rate for us at this point. So we feel we're in a very good position to hit our target goal this year, and of course, progress monitoring through the end of the year. Questions for us?
Anybody have any questions?
It's about FAFSA. You were talking about something about FAFSA, right?
Yes.
Is this a presentation where you talked about the high schools, the kids applied for this? Is this the agenda item?
No.
LSG.
Is the LSG?
Yes, you're
I
doing
have something, I remember, I'll give it one second. Yes, it's this one. Give me 1 second. In-house bill 3 is this one. What are we doing in early childhood literacy in mathematics and proficiency?
No.
Is this the one? I was late, I'm sorry. Are you going to be next month? Okay, what about this? Okay, this one. Okay, in FAFSA, that's the one that I have. The target is 100%, and we have 74 or 95%. What do we need in order to increase that 5% to meet the goal?
Really, we're just working with students at this point, Ms. Trout. We have hesitation from some of our parents to kind of share their financial information since they do have to use their 2020 tax returns. But we do have different FAFSA days, FAFSA nights. Our graduation coaches are working directly with students and families to get those completed.
And my question is, for example, those kids that are missing to report and bring the FAFSA information, is there any ways that you could reach out to the parents? Because this is very important that the kids are going to graduate, including my daughter.
Yes.
They should bring that, because that is true, like you said, some of the parents, they didn't want to provide information because whatever situation it is, approach them in a very friendly way.
Yes.
Because this is something that they have to do. And sometimes the kids, they don't know how to deliver the message.
Correct.
Yes. So it's something that you guys have to do. And thank you very much. So Northwest Early College will only 5% in order to meet the goal.
And again, this was as of February 14th, so we have had FAFSA completion rates. And again, we have to use a dashboard on this, so it's not updated every month or weekly. So yes.
But what about coming to your high school is 74 to 100?
Yes, so we're still working with our students at Gunnville High School, and again, graduation coaches are doing those one-on-one appointments with parents and families to help them complete the FAFSA requirements.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Searles.
It's not this month's topic, but it'll be next month, the college career readiness.
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to have a report on why we closed down our culinary, because that is definitely a huge career included in that, please. Could be in a Thursday packet, it could be somewhere, but that is a huge career, and I'd like to know why I have no idea why we closed that down. Thank you very much. And this is really 74% of the high school's really good. Thank you very much, ladies, for working so hard.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, just real quick, I believe, I don't know if it was previous administration, they actually changed FAFSA to allow for juniors to start applying. Is that still in existence?
No, we're only working with seniors at this point.
Okay.
And again, just because we are working with 2020 tax information.
Or you know what it was working on the previous year's tax information.
Yeah, so again, we're having to use 2020 tax information instead of 2021.
So the FAFSA allowed for the
Prior
previous,
year, yes.
because if not, that time function, so it allowed for,
like a window.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. So that is still in existence.
Yes.
And just to commend, 74% at a traditional high school, and I know one of our goals is to continue to increase that, especially when I got on the board. A lot of discussion was around scholarship opportunities versus well, that was the discussion, and it was, wait a minute, when you look at the majority of our student population would get more out of FAFSA than just looking at scholarships, so we've been able to increase that throughout the years, and we appreciate that.
Great.
All right, anybody else?
Just an observation. I am thrilled. 74%, like Mr. Rodriguez said, at Canutillo High School, and 95 at Northwest. I mean, you guys must be knocking on a lot of doors and bringing in a lot of people, because I know it's hard to do. And I just, on behalf of the board, I just want to thank you for the work that you do.
Our campus, counselors, graduation coach, everybody involved is doing a phenomenal job, so kudos to them. They're doing all the hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, over the years, I mean, we've seen this grow, you know, in terms of the number of people that we want to get to pass it. The more they're used to doing that, they see that they're going to get money, the more likely they are to go in. And so I really appreciate it, especially during this time. You guys are doing this kind of work. I, you know, very much appreciate it. Thank you guys, and we'll knock on some more doors.
Just
High
one
school.
small question, Mr. President.
Mrs. Sprout.
What is the due date for submit the FAFSA?
So it's open-ended, as long as it gets done. Since we have so many college initiatives happening in our campuses, our priority is always March 1st, because that's your scholarship priority deadline. But again, this is ongoing all the way up until after they graduate. So they'll keep renewing FAFSA every year, and we'll keep working.
They can always apply depending, even if they don't go attend the fall semester, they can still file up the FAFSA and go to whatever next semester is available.
Correct.
And even when they register, they can even still do it then and get a temporary loan or whatever till the FAFSA report.
And then the come out to action. Thank you so
Some
much.
secretary should have it already in place like you guys are doing.
Yes, they're ready to go.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you, Nicole.
Anybody else?
Very much.
All right, thank you. Next agenda item, Jessica?
Yes, sir. Next item is item number 5, consent agenda. Administration recommends approval as presented.
Okay.
I would like, are you talking about the consent agenda?
Yes, this is.
I would like to move to approve that. I would like to pull up an item.
I'm sorry.
Which item would you like to pull?
5A4.
This topic was for 5A4, budget journal entry 341536, AstroTurf at AMS.
And this is Searle?
And, and we're also gonna pull 5A7, the Panorama Education SEL curriculum.
That went away, right? For now.
That's the one we're going to table for current voting. And we are going to pull C3, approval of CISD policy update 118, first reading.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right, and administration, you are pulling 7?
Yes. Yes, sir. They're pulling 7, so we can look at it.
Okay, and item 5A4, Ms. Trump, you would like that pulled?
5A4.
But just the budget journal entry 341536. That's
Okay. Ms. Trump, did you communicate with administration?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did?
okay.
Okay. All right. And
Mr.
it was
Chair,
not- It was not resolved? Okay, and Ms. Earls, same with you?
Yes.
All right, is that correct? Okay, all right, so we are pulling item 5A4. 5,
Budget journal entry 341536. That's what we're pulling.
okay,
Just that one budget journal.
okay. And then item 5A7,
Yes.
that'll be tabled, not pulled, right?
Yes. C.
C3?
Yes, C3. Approval of TASB policy update 118.
Okay, for you.
We're pulling it.
All right.
No, they're not pull, I just wanted to have a question, but it's not like going away.
Not table.
No, not table.
Hold for questions. All right.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to approve the.
It was a motion already.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Second, I'll second.
With the exception of the items that are pulled and tabled, is that your motion?
Yes.
All right, and we have a second?
One second.
All right, and, Jessica, please.
Mr. Coronado?
Yes?
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Bayan is not present. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Earls?
Yes.
And Ms. Trout?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 5A4.
5A4. The reason that I want to pull this item is because I see in the budget amendments $1,100,000, and I would like to ask what is the reason why, what's the allocation for this, and moving to another one. It says building purchase, construction improvement, so I just would like to know.
As the board is aware, you recently approved the recoding of tracks at the middle schools and the high school. During the process, Coach Brooks and I met with the contractor that is doing the tracks at the middle schools, and we found certain deficiencies in the existing subsurface. During that conversation, Coach Brooks brought up to my attention that he remembers that the district, during the construction of Garcia, and because of the location of Garcia Elementary School, close to the irrigation ditch, there was a lot of clay soils that were taken out of that site and used to build up the stadium at AMS. And so I went back into the records that we have available at facilities, and there is a record of an engineering report from 2011 that confirms this. And so, unfortunately, what we're saying is that there is very poor soils in that stadium. If we proceed with the new artificial turf project, we run the risk of eventually having additional problems of movement, of heaving of the field, which in fact is one of the reasons why this existing turf got in so bad condition already, because as it heaves, the seams of the fabric are tearing apart. And so, in addition to the cost that we anticipate being close to at least $750,000 for just the project to do the turf, we are also anticipating additional costs for engineering and construction to remove some of this material and to be able to regrade and properly prepare the subsurface for the installation of this very expensive system.
So this is for the football field for AMS or?
AMS.
Out there at the middle school?
Yes.
Also, then we're projecting like 750 plus, like you said, engineering and.
Plus additional engineering, plus additional removal of existing soils and importing of new structural field.
Are part of it, okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to know what this amount.
Yes.
Just to clarify, for the community as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to approve.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on agenda item 5A4. Any further discussion? Jessica, please call the board.
Mr. Coronado?
Yes?
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Bayan not present. Mr. Rodriguez?
Abstain.
Abstaining. Ms. Earls?
Yes.
And Ms. Trout?
Yes.
All right, that takes us to next one, agenda C3. All right.
So my question is, and y'all can turn in your books to page 20. It's just really a kind of a quick question and kind of a homework sort of question for the board. This is our policy DFE local. termination of employment resignation. So we've got some new wording in here. And you could follow me. All resignations shall be submitted in writing to the superintendent, here's the new wording, or other person designated by board action in accordance with this policy. So it sounds like that we, as a board, have to designate that person by board action who could possibly take a resignation.
Sorry, Mrs. Searles, which
Page 118 in our book. You see it right at the top of stuff. Go to 118. No. And this is where I just read to that. Are you with me?
Yes.
Did y'all see what I'm? Okay. So what I see here is other person designated by board action. And so
the reason that's in there is that you may have times when you don't have a superintendent, and so you'll be required to authorize somebody to act as a superintendent in place of the superintendent. Generally, your policies regarding resignations will go to the superintendent. He can designate, for example, this cutoff owner staff to accept it. This is only for the board to make some special designations.
that's correct. And so I see, Mr. Coronado, that we need to, by board action, designate someone to accept a resignation.
No, I think we are. Not yet, only if he's not here. If we don't have a superintendent for some reason.
Well, it doesn't say that though.
Right, because it's not self-executing. You don't have to have somebody waiting in the wings to do that. So the superintendent right now can accept all of those resignations, or he can designate that authority to the Human Resources Department, which he normally does. If the superintendent doesn't exist, we don't have one for some reason, then the board, through some board action, could say, I am nominating this person to serve as interim, or we're going to have this person acting instead of the superintendent. That action would allow those people to have this authority. But you don't have to do that right now. The policy doesn't require you to do that in advance. It's only when you need it.
I mean, I don't mean to cross your contend with you at all, Mr. Blanco. But the way I read it doesn't read like that. It reads that the board action in accordance with this policy, and there's 1, 2, 3, first paragraph, third paragraph, and fourth paragraph, all talk about the person who has been designated by the board. And so my opinion is, I mean, are we supposed to say it's going to be Martha Croswell, or it's going to be Martha, that we need, what I'm reading here is.
Can I provide an example?
Sure.
So when we had an interim superintendent, Ms. Brigham, and there was issues that we had with staff members that needed to either be let go, but she was protecting them. One of those options was the board could designate Ms. Carrasco to accept or address some of those issues. And so that was an option we were going to provide to the board because Ms. Brigham was protecting David Murphy's staff members.
So
we're going.
Yeah,
that's
we're going
really
outside
not.
on our side of it.
Yeah.
Ms. Earls, may I?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, I think the key in there is or.
Okay. Okay, so.
If like Mr. Blanco was saying, if it doesn't.
I get you.
If the superintendent doesn't exist for us right now because he resigned or whatever, then we have to designate somebody to take his place to do that.
And with that said, okay, this is new policy. You're totally correct. I see 4. I don't know trying to work there. But as I'm reading this, no other person at this time and place, except for Dr. Delavise, our superintendent, has any authority to accept a resignation.
No, that's
well,
not
except for, if you read further paragraphs down, you can designate people for different types of employees.
And if I may, I just want to say our current practice, Dr. Galavis, of course, accepts resignations. He has designated myself to accept those resignations. Currently, between he and I, we do that. Mostly he'll do the contracted employees and I'll do the at-will. But in his absence, of course, you know, he will give me that authority to do that. If we have a resignation, you know, he's able to be reached, so, you know, he'll give that authorization to do that. So he's designated me to accept the resignations when he's not in the building, and we're continuing with our process.
Okay, so do we need to, by board action, designate Mr. Roscoe as the other person just on the
I
ground?
mean, you can, but it's not necessary because you have the superintendent with the ability to do that.
Okay, I just want, I mean, I guess where my heart's going is that Mr. Vasquez isn't gonna go, okay, sure, I took all your resignations, thank you.
No, he can't.
Okay, yeah, sorry, Bruno, I just used your example.
For some people.
But you see where when it's new writing, new policy, I just want to make sure that we as a board didn't need to do it.
We would do that if Dr. Melvise is not around.
Okay.
We'd have to designate
You
somebody.
hanging around, Dr. Gus?
I do have a question, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And let me.
Hold on just a second. Ms. Searles, are you?
Yeah, I think that the words or,
Yeah.
and what I'm hearing for the clarification, if it wasn't Dr. Galavis, it'd be Ms. Carrasco, and that really is not an issue as long as Dr. Galavis is here, he's gonna do it, correct? And there's no one else authorized but him at this time.
Right.
Okay.
And if you notice, they even, like, for example, at-will employees, he can designate almost anybody to accept his resignation.
He does, but it generally goes to.
It generally goes to Martha, but he could.
It was exactly my question. Please help me to understand this legal.
When we says another or other person, anyone from the cabinet, anyone from HR, or other person from where?
Well, you could, if it was required, but as long as the superintendent's here, you don't need to do it. You would have board action to take care of that. With the at-will employees, superintendent permitted to delegate that authority to someone. It's normal practice, it would be the HR department, that just makes sense.
But not necessarily.
No, theoretically, you are correct. You could say, well, I don't want to be Ms. Carrasco, I want to be Mr. Vasquez. You could do that. Wouldn't make a lot of sense because he's not running HR.
Yeah, but here it doesn't say HR,
No, because he's got the authority to do some things and we trust his judgment.
or other person, anyone that the board decides that's time in case that we don't have it. Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to.
I have one more thing.
Yes.
But nobody else can have somebody sign your resignation paper.
Sure, they can.
They can.
Just gotta go to the superintendent.
Okay, they can.
Any supervisor can ask an employee to resign.
Okay.
They have to do it.
It doesn't mean they have to. Do they need to feel encumbered to do it, or they go?
I can't speak to individual
Okay.
situations, but
I get it.
You know, yeah, to your point, any supervisor could ask any employee to, I want you to go, I want you to resign. That person would choose to do it or not. If they don't think they should, they usually end up in Martha's office.
Yeah.
Talking about it.
Okay.
Basically, all resignations have to come through HR.
So suppose Miss Marnie, look, it's Marnie at this time. Marnie does, here's your resignation paper. It's time for you to go.
The resignation?
It's still gonna come to you, and do you then interview the employee and go, did you really wanna do this? This is what you really.
Normally, and when we've talked to employees, I mean, when a resignation is something that you really need to think about as an employee. Once they do it, I mean, it's a serious matter because it deals with your livelihood. Sometimes people resign for, I mean, there's various reasons. They're going to another district, they're just moving out of town. So those are personal reasons that the employee makes the decision on their own if they want to resign. And then, of course, what's required is that they turn in a written statement telling us that that's what they want to do. At that point in time, again, if it's an at-will employee, I'll sign off on it. If it is a contracted employee, our practice is that Dr. Galavi signs off so that he's aware and he's got to approve contracted employees to release the contract.
Okay, I get it. So we do not, I mean, this should not say anywhere in here, the board designated person is Ms. Ross.
No. We would do that if he's not around.
Okay, but as long as he's here, he's still the boss. Okay, good deal. Thank you. So I move to approve. If there's no other questions.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on this agenda item. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. Jessica, please call the board.
Mr. Coronado?
Yes?
Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Bayona, not present. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
And Ms. Trout?
Yes.
All right, takes us to the next agenda item.
Next agenda item is item number 6, executive session.
All right. Can you give us a time, Jessica?
Yes, current time is 7:37 p.m.
Okay. All right.
But I think she should.
Just,
Item 7.
yes.
Item number 7A, discussion and possible action related to intervention in Public Utility Commission of Texas, PUC, proceeding PUC docket number 52195, SOAH docket number 473-21-2606, application of El Paso Electric Company to change rates.
All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Trout.
Yes, I have a motion to allow the attorney's rate 41K to move forward the hearing and to bring any settlement discussed before the board.
All right, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on agenda item 7A. Have any discussion from the board? All right, hearing none, Ms. Martinez, please pull the board.
Mr. Coronado?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Abstain.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Bayona, not present. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
And Ms. Trout?
Yes.
All right, that takes us to next agenda item. Adjournment. Unanimous consent of the board. We are adjourned. Thank you, board, for a good meeting. Steve, thank you.